Welcome to the Core Podcast, brought to you by Core to Cloud. We talk about all things cybersecurity, about the latest technologies, the insights, the learnings, and also a little bit about our culture in this ever-evolving environment. I'm Kelly and I head up the marketing department.
And I'm Phil from the technical team, and we're going to take you through all our technology in a really interesting way.
Phil talks technical, while I keep it light-hearted and remove all the jargon. We also have a selection of guest speakers, including a few people popping in from the Core to Cloud team. So let's dive in. Welcome to the episode of the podcast today. I'm really delighted to have Dan with us here in the studio. And of course, Phil is joining us nice and virtually so we can see you on the screen. Dan, for anyone that doesn't know you, could you give us a bit of an introduction about yourself and how you've ended up on the podcast, I guess, today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here. So thanks for the invite. My name's Dan Potter. I am the Director of Operational Resilience at Immersive Labs. I've joined at the end of May, having spent the last 16 or 17 years actually in financial services, working for Citibank in various roles around business continuity management, third-party risk, crisis and incident management, and then most recently focused on operational resilience.
So let's roll back on the financial bit, because that's obviously how you've ended up at this role. What were your kind of key I guess the things that you had to do on a day-to-day? What were you looking at and how did it kind of overlap in, I guess, in the cybersecurity world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would sit next to our cybersecurity team, and my day-to-day responsibility was overseeing the business continuity operational resilience function, and as part of that, delivering exercising for our senior management and our different business lines to understand if they were prepared to respond to any threat, any disruption, and then understand if we could recover in time against our certain obligations or service levels. And we would partner very closely with the cyber threat exercise team. And we started to integrate those exercises together, because it doesn't matter what the cause is, it's the same kind of challenges, it's the same kind of problems, and it's the same kind of people that need to be involved in the response.
Okay. So that's how they kind of collided and the worlds collided with the technical and and the
so
risk.
I came from a sort of more business, non-technical background, working with the technical guys who are brilliant and really good at scaring everyone around, this is what will happen under a cyber attack, and everyone going, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
And then trying to translate that to, he wants to do this or she wants to do this, they're going to stop something working, this is what it means for the business. Is this the right decision? Do we understand the protocols around it? So that kind of threading the two together.
And I'm guessing in your career span there, that evolved quite rapidly in the sense that, digitalization, I'm not sure if you were around the COVID period, but people moving to that. So I'm guessing what you dealt with at the beginning of your career changed quite quickly, or you saw a difference?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So I joined big American bank in 2006, 2007, working in New York, where business continuity planning, the big disruption was all around a big hurricane, sort of a natural disaster or a terrorism threat. And those are really significant threats, right?
Yes.
But they are relatively contained and localized, as traumatic and terrible as they are. What we saw with increasing digitalization, great progress. I mean, digital economy really takes off and really makes things easier for the business. It's a great enabler, but it obviously increases the risk. And toward the end of my time in financial services, we could easily talk about a scenario where there is a cyber attack or a disruption that could impact hundreds, if not thousands of teams globally at the same time. And historically, we'd been preparing for one disruption in New York or in London or in Manchester, wherever it may be, and all those teams being impacted in some way, but it being relatively contained. And I think that's what really I've seen a challenge of. Now we could see an entire organization paralyzed through a simple cyber attack. Yeah.
We've obviously been looking into this because we're delivering a service around Immersive Labs. And when you start to look at it, only 1 in 5 organizations have really got a formal incident management plan. And when you start to look at that, and along with the lack of testing, you can see why when something bad happens, people they're really not prepared, are they? It's really important to be sort of regularly testing these plans as well as having them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about that rehearsal. and building that muscle memory. And we found, you can create these wonderful incident response plans, and absolutely you have to have them. But I've also run through real crisis events where no one pulls out the playbook, or no one knows where to find it, or they forget it's there. It's because we hadn't rehearsed them about the protocols and procedures. And you can often have this kind of tension almost where you've got the business continuity of the crisis management team that have created this playbook, procedures, incident response plan, and they're very proud of that. But it's never actually used that frequently. And then when it is used, it goes out the window because the business are involved in a very different way. And it's because we're not necessarily having that feedback loop about how do you exercise, how do you get that engagement, and then how do you validate that it's the right document and it meets the needs of your executive management team or your operations team or your marketing team or whoever it may be.
And I think that's very important what you're saying, because it's about the exec team, because one of the things we always try to drill into people is this isn't just about IT, it's about the whole business, isn't it? And I think, one of the examples you talked to me about, Kelly, I think this came from somebody else at Immersive Labs, was it's a bit like first aid training. You've got a certificate, but if someone's unwell, would you be able to do CPR, or would you be able to know?
We've had a great day. We've here, Dan's with us all day, feel for content, and we were kicking this around because even if you are health and safety trained, we all get told, don't we, that you may have to break someone's rib to do it, CPR, and we've all practiced on that dummy.
Yep.
And I said, quote, I don't know if I have the mindset, if I had to do it, to break someone's rib. I hope I would, but because I've never done it and I've never been put in that scenario, I don't actually know my fight or flight or what I might freeze. And we a few months back, my daughter was on a bouncy castle party. The kid launched off, didn't put her hands out, took her teeth out. Terrifying, blood everywhere. Her mum shut down.
Yeah,
she shut
doesn't
down.
Know how to respond.
She didn't know how to respond. There was blood everywhere. And other dads picked her up and got her in the car, and she completely shut down. But no one can prepare you that as a parent of how you're going to react when your kid's really badly injured. And I think, I know it's cyber, but it's a very similar thing. We all know what we should do. We all have risk registers of how we should react. So I guess it's putting that into... It's
in that context. It's rehearsing it, right? And it's whether are you going to fight it, flight, or freeze. Like, you don't know how you're going to respond until you're in the situation. So that's why you need these hyper-realistic exercises that really allow you in a safe space to go, actually, I wouldn't know what I'm doing in this circumstance, or I wouldn't have that confidence. And you can build that confidence and that capability over time, but you don't want to find that out on the day. I want to pick up, Phil, on your point about cyber is really, it's easy to just pass this off to, this is the problem of the technology or the CISO. I've been in so many kind of conversations where that's come through of, great, this is this guy's problem to fix. You don't need me to do anything, just go and fix it. Fine. And by gosh, they can go and do all that really technical, complex stuff to fix it. But you've got to be able to translate that to what this means for your business, whether you're a manufacturer, financial services, transport, logistics. These guys are going to fix something, but you're the one that's ultimately accountable for the business. And it's your business that's going to be disrupted in some way because of this cyber attack, and you can't just delegate the responsibility, right?
So if anyone is going through this process right now and they do need to test, what's the traditional way, how in your career did you do that? Because I know what we're talking today about how that's evolving and how Immersive and Core to Cloud to help people. What is it most people, I mean, I'm guessing not everyone has a version of you in your company. One, so how would they be doing that at the moment? And two, anyone that does have a version of you, what were you doing to do that pre-working with Immersive Labs?
Yeah, so some organizations will have dedicated exercise teams, so that's a luxury that few will have.
Okay.
The way to exercise and understand your incident response capabilities traditionally, and we get on to how it's evolving and there's better ways of doing it, is through a simple tabletop exercise of almost get that playbook out, create some very basic scenario that says something's happened. What do we do? Do we know what to, do we know what the procedure is? And almost sort of PowerPoint, very linear, very static, and just walk through it. And
that would be someone just, for example, if it was me and we were doing it at Core to Cloud, you just sit me in a room and answer some questions and we'd go for a PowerPoint potentially.
Or we would sort of create a background scenario that says, right, something's going to break today at Core to Cloud. Okay. Get the management team around because it's a team dynamic. This is a team sport. It's not it's not just the technology, the CTO, or the CISO's responsibility. It's got to be everyone.
Okay.
So you need to get everyone from your senior leadership around the table and talk through the decision-making process. And are they all clear on who's going to make what decisions? Does the CEO need to make every decision? No, absolutely not. They probably need to be out of the room and not involved.
Okay.
But some CEOs want to be and they can't help themselves. So, the purpose of an exercise is to understand both the playbook and the procedures, but also the dynamics in the room. And, some people can think they're being helpful, but actually really are not the right personality types in a crisis.
Interesting. I don't think I would be. I don't know. I've never been in a crisis. Phil, your background, obviously I know yours is NHS. Did you ever have to do these exercises as a team, or was that ever,
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, we did them kind of more as a kind of an organisation, and it was coming together. I'd say they create a scenario and you go through it, and you would as best you could follow your processes through it. I think the way that Immersive works is it's much better at bringing in the people, all the processes and the technologies, and the way that that you can customize your own scenarios, but the way that even the out the box ones work, they're very well thought out and can work across many different sectors. So I think yes, you can do something yourself, but it's the time and the thought that's gone into these things, and also the participation, because if you've got something as a PowerPoint, it's hard to include everybody. Whereas the way that Immersive works is you can have those group discussions, but everyone can get an individual vote as well. So it's very inclusive, and you can bring it across all the different teams. So I think and just the way it's presented, people are generally a lot more engaged. And if you've got people's engagement, then you're going to get proper thoughts through proper conversations. I mean, we've run these quite a few times with customers, and sometimes it's really interesting where we get taken down, and we start to, we sometimes have people that have been in the company a long time telling new people how things used to work and how they work now and how things have improved and where things are going. So it can be a real kind of a team building exercise as well as going through your incident management plan. So yeah, they've been really good.
Yeah,
I think that leans on nicely then. So obviously we've touched on your career, how it grew, how it changed, how digitalization had an impact. You obviously had a niggle that maybe the presentation thing wasn't working, or was it by accident you found Immersive? How did that evolve for you?
Yeah, so we'd been running the same kind of format of exercise year after year.
Yep.
The need to do exercising in a large financial service organization was only ever increasing, right? Because of the different threats and the scale and scope and complexity of those organizations. So we needed a way to do it much more efficiently, to make the job selfishly easier for the facilitator. So to your point, Phil, it can be really hard to facilitate those exercises because you need to bring everyone in the room together and get them all engaged. If you're really going to block out a couple of hours of really senior people's time to go through an exercise, you want them all to leave something, to take something outside the room. And that requires pretty good facilitation skills, if I can say it that way. The challenge is that's a potentially limited resource, but what sort of hooked me into Immersive Labs was the platform can take a lot of the pressure away from facilitation, because the way it displays the options that anyone can take and allows everyone, to your point, Phil, to be included in decision making. It's not a really technical conversation. Everyone can have a viewpoint. Everyone can see the consequences of their preference of what action needs to be taken in which order. It makes it easier to facilitate, and it takes the pressure away so that you can really bring out a better conversation rather than, I've had experiences where you deliver an exercise, you say, this has happened, now what do we do? And we got stunned silence, or this has happened, now what do we do? And you've got a really great CISO or technical expertise who just fills this void with 40 minutes of
really technical information.
Which has lost everyone in the room, right? That's great, but what are you telling me?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, we've run them before, and I didn't realise actually how I know when Phil was like, oh, we're going to do it, you can be involved, you can run one of these. I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, get involved. And I know we did one, and I can't remember which one it was. It might be the oil one or one of the ones that we did. And one of the points was making a decision on shutting all the social media down because the social media had been hacked.
Yeah.
Well, all the technical team were like, boom, just shut the social media down, kill it, kill the website, all gone, the problem's gone. And I sat there like, what are you talking about? No. And they were like, what do you mean no? And I was like, think of the years that you've built that up and the following, and what does that show to your customers that you just shut it down and there's no communication. But they hadn't seen it from that point of view. And I get it. To solve the problem, you remove where they've got in, you take out the social media. But yes, that's the playbook and that's what you should probably do. But the impact of that from a marketing perspective was huge. So I found it really interesting because it wasn't just, and then there was HR conversations because of the person that, you know, hadn't changed their password, and everyone had different opinions around the room. But yeah, it made it real for everybody, like a tangible.
It needs to be real, and everyone's got a different perspective. And your point there about the social media, you've spent years building that up. Just to turn it off is going to send all the wrong signals and undo all that good work.
Yeah.
That might not be like the right thing to do, actually. That might actually be really counterintuitive. But a security person by design is like just wants to shut down, protect, safety. That's what they do. That's what their skill set is. But it's not always... I mean, obviously, cybersecurity is like the thing, but you need to balance.
But there's emotion and there's also your value of your brand. Yeah. I mean, a lot of brands, not ours in particular, but retail and things, a lot of their customer success or customer ops is run through social. Yeah. People at so-and-so, my delivery didn't turn up. They respond saying, I'm really sorry about that. Let's take this off. Like so much as you see, you know, you Twitter something or tweet something and it gets an instant response. That's like a huge team now. Yes, for my company, maybe, you know, shutting off for a little bit wouldn't be great. But for finance and retail, it just wouldn't be an option.
Yeah, it can be absolutely, it can be worse. And I think that's how you sort of about like, why do we want to move away from that kind of approach and start using immersive labs? It was to make it more engaging. It was getting a bit tired. We were trying to do more and we needed to scale up because if you think we were exercising 20, 30, 40 senior execs in the room, the decision-making and the conversation wasn't leaving that room. It wasn't filtering down to the team below them and the team below them and the team below them. And they're the people that are going to first see the signs of a cyber attack. They're the ones who are going to make the initial response, detection, escalation, all these great sort of frameworks that you might have. They're the ones that need to understand the conversation that's gone on. They need to be engaged through this exercising because they are quite literally your first line of defense. And they're the teams that are going to actually now allow your organization to recover. Yeah. But if they can't sit in and see the execs battle it out between, you know, marketing want to do this, public relations a different thing, and finance something else. So how can you take that kind of conversation and broaden it and get much more people in the room without, you know, having to facilitate 600 people simultaneously, which would just not work. And that's where the online platform
really helped with that.
Yeah, really helped.
Did Immersive Labs, did you go out and source it? Did you think, I need to find something new? Or, I mean, I know there was a big thing with Bank of England. Was that
So that's sort of thing? So I used to I co-chaired the Bank of England Sector Exercise Group, SEG, and in 2019, Citi, previous employer, sponsored something called the Commonwealth Cyber Declaration. Okay. And as part of that, we'd committed to run cyber exercises across 6 nations in Africa and then expand it out to other geographies in conjunction with the local sort of UK Foreign Office and local banks and institutions. And it was really like an educational awareness session. And our challenge was to deliver simultaneously 6 exercises across Africa, right? Everywhere from Nigeria to South Africa, Tanzania, Uganda. We had the scenario and we were going to deliver it in PowerPoint, and this is 2019, so before Zoom was a thing and before Teams on...
Yeah, had really escalated.
Really what would look now an antiquated video platform. And it was actually the Foreign and Commonwealth Office who came out to me and said, there's this small startup company that are doing some really interesting things around cybersecurity and simulation exercising. Would you be interested in meeting with them?
Yeah.
So Immersive Labs rocked into our office and they showed us their platform, instantly got it and was like, can you take this PowerPoint and make it much more interesting and engaging? And can we then run it simultaneously across 6 countries and everyone be able to see the results at the same time? And they went, yep. And that was the start of that relationship. So that all worked really well.
You must have been so excited. Like, I love it, like, from a marketing...
Terrified. But excited.
Like, when someone gives me a platform, it's like, you can do this at exactly the same time with automation and everyone gets all this information. I'm like, wow. So there must have been a little bit of you like, oh, this is going to make my life easier. I know it was a new platform and it could fail and there was probably all those sides of things.
I think I was really confident. We were really confident that they would be able to deliver. And it took a lot of the stress away from us because we would have had all the PowerPoint kind of logistics and coordinating 6 facilitators, all I think internally Immersive Labs then were probably
Nervous?
nervous.
Do you think
they
like,
were
yes?
nervous. They were running around behind the scenes, but it all worked perfectly on
Yeah.
the day. So
They were probably just grateful for that opportunity.
yeah,
'cause it,
and then we continued working with them on various initiatives around Crisis Sim and helped them develop the product further to where it is today. That's how I've ended up working with them. So over many years,
of involvement.
yeah.
Yeah, obviously you've seen it from its infancy. Could you talk to us a little bit about what you did on the development side? I know you've talked to me offline about how you used it for benchmarking in your job, how I know there's lots of reports. I mean, Phil, you could probably talk about some of the reports that come out of the back end, but how has it evolved from that original thing that you did, and why is it really exciting now?
Yeah, it looks completely different, and the capabilities are completely different to that first kind of use case that we had in 2019 for the those exercises across Africa. And it's amazing about how quickly it's sort of really developed.
Yeah.
So in terms of the functionality to vote and have everyone engage independently, and then the decision tree, like the thing that I've been really struck by was they call it tree view, that you can show all the different decision-making consequences and assign different ratings to it.
Yeah.
Like that is great. And you can spend hours sort of getting into how you like endless loops of decision making and sort of go back and choose your own adventure. That's great, and that allows participants to sort of play that and compete against each other. Like who's gonna, it's not a race, right? But who's gonna come out of this exercise? Here's the best path. You're gonna take the wrong path. You're gonna take the wrong path. You're gonna do it with loads of confidence. You're still gonna take in the wrong path.
Yeah. Or
you're gonna take the right path, but you're not really sure about it. That data that comes out of the simulation is where the real value is, if that makes sense. It's because in financial services, I'm sure it's in any industry, that little competitive element, that gamification,
yes,
that makes it so much more interesting and engaging. And it's a good sort of way of, really confident in London, really, really confident in New York, but they took the wrong decision.
Yeah, because that's the thing. You can see if someone's, I'm right, Phil, if I'm saying anything wrong here, you guys can correct me, but you can see if someone's if they made a decision really confidently and wrong, or they made the right decision but were a little bit more hesitant. So you can kind of see what that person is like and how you think they may react to something.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, the financial sector is where your background comes from. And I know there is a due date kind of by the 2025. Could you explain to anyone listening what's happening and what people need to be prepared for?
Absolutely. So sort of long-standing, the FCA, the PRA, so the Financial Conduct Authority, and the Prudential Regulatory Authority from the Bank of England, so the two regulatory bodies in the UK, have had requirements around annual business continuity tabletop exercising and cybersecurity exercising. Those kind of go back some time. Exercising is really important. So the two principal regulators in the UK are the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulatory Authority from the Bank of England. And they've got kind of long-standing requirements around doing a business continuity tabletop exercise or a cybersecurity sort of penetration testing and all these kind of good things.
Yeah.
In the last few years, they've released some new guidance around operational resilience. And firms had until March of this year to do the first phase of implementation. And they have until 2025 to increasingly develop their programs and be fully compliant with the new operational resilience regulations.
Okay.
What does this mean? Basically means any organization regulated by the FCA or PRA need to identify what they call their important business services, and there's loads of definitions around this. But they are the outcomes that the financial service are delivering to their clients. So, mortgage applications or mortgage disbursements, processing payroll, making welfare payments, whatever those business services are, each firm needs to be able to identify them. They then need to map them from an end-to-end perspective. So what are the different component teams, the different data sets, applications, third parties that are involved in delivering that outcome to a client, right? And there could be many of those across a business service, and there's a lot of interconnectedness within the financial service industry. And then this is where the exercising and crisis simulation really comes into play. Once you've got this mapping of those different teams together, the regulation says you must apply severe but plausible disruption scenarios and set something called an impact tolerance. So an impact tolerance is saying this service cannot be down for this period of time or without this level of processing, whatever that metric would be, for more than, let's say, 24 hours or 48 hours, because failure to bring that service back up is going to result in material harm to an individual or to UK financial stability. There's all sort of definitions around this. So firms have got to figure out their important business services. They've got to figure out when the failure to deliver those is going to cause harm and to whom that harm is going to be caused. And then by 2025, they need to have a well-established program of severe but plausible scenario exercising, where they've got to assume disruption's going to occur. It's not about stopping disruption. Disruption's going to occur, and you need to figure out how you exercise all the teams involved in that business service against what they call a severe but plausible scenario. Now, what is that, right? A severe but plausible scenario, if we'd have sat around this table in 2019 and said there'll be a war in Eastern Europe, we'll go through a global pandemic for 2 years, a cargo ship will block the Suez Canal for 2 weeks, you'd have been like,
that's not stupid.
Not going to happen. Get out. But that's an example of a severe but plausible scenario that you could now play out. And the most common severe but plausible scenario that we're all got to be concerned about is a cyber attack, because a cyber attack is very plausible and the implications of it can be very severe on your organization, particularly if you don't respond in that initial phase in the right way. So you could lose your entire email system, you could lose your entire network, and that's going to mean that you're not able to deliver your business service. That means you could cause harm to the market, right? And at the moment, everything we're hearing externally about mortgages and interest rates, imagine you've just bought your house, you've just agreed the interest rate, and you've got your sort of mortgage approval product done. Your organization then has a cyber attack and you can't deliver that, and it's 2 weeks later before you can recover, and now the interest rates have gone through the roof. You've created harm for that individual, and that's not acceptable.
Okay, so what is the impact then of getting ready? So for me, that sounded like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Or my brain just went, oh my God, that sounds like a lot of work.
I was rambling there, but yeah.
No, but you're covering the whole point. I'm assuming this doesn't just impact large banks.
No, this is everyone. So every organisation within the FCA remit will need to have this program of work to identify their business services, set their impact tolerances, map their processes, and then undertake severe but plausible scenario testing. Severe but plausible is their terminology. And you need to do exercising across those business services. So where traditionally you might just do your incident response team for your organization, you might just test your senior management, still do that, but now you've got to test your business services. And some firms might have 3 or 4 of those business services, and there might be 5 or 6 teams in each of those business services, and they've all got to go through an exercise. Some organizations might have 30, 40, 50 business services and hundreds of teams involved. So you've got to be able to scale up your exercising program, and you've got to be able to show increasing maturity. And the regulators have basically said, basic tabletop exercising, great for year 1.
But you need to be better.
You need to be doing a lot better by 2025.
And what's the impact if you aren't doing better? Is it a slap on the wrist? Is it
letter?
It's
a letter. A slap on the wrist would be the letter. So if you're not in compliance with the regulation by 2025, there could be depending on the size of your organization and your systemic risk, there'll be different levels of sanction. But if you're not in compliance with the regulation by 2025, there could be sanctions against your company, your organization. You've got the senior management accountability regime. So your SMF senior management function, someone like your SMF 24, who's accountable for operational resilience, they're ultimately on the hook to make sure that your firm's in compliance by 2025.
Okay, so it's a big job for that person.
Yeah.
A massive
They should
job.
be worried. But it's also an opportunity.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to obviously improve and lead the way and be pioneering on that. I'm assuming not everyone has in their business a dedicated person to do that?
No, I would suspect a lot of organizations certainly won't have necessarily a dedicated exercise team. They may have someone who does business continuity.
Okay.
And they may have someone who's doing information security or a CISO type function. What we're starting to see is those sort of roles grouped together into a new operational resilience role or a chief operational resilience role. And if you think about what the regulator are really trying to get firms to do is they're trying to make sure that you're all resilient enough to be able to withstand shocks caused by disruption, whether that's terrible events in Eastern Europe, inflation, or most likely a cyber attack, or a combination of all of those at the same time. How can you quickly adapt, adjust, recover from those shocks, absorb that into your organization? And you need to be able to exercise your organization to build that capability. That's what they're saying. They want you to be more resilient, more able to withstand, and most importantly, be able to deliver that outcome, whatever it is you do, to your client, regardless of what's going on. Because you're accountable.
You're accountable. So trying to make you a bit more agile and flexible with what could happen. So my brain's still saying that sounds like a lot of work, Phil. So if there's anyone listening to that would be in this role, or know that might impact them, or think, oh gosh, that's probably going to come my way. If they're doing that in the financial sector, then it's probably going to roll out, right? We can't just assume that these sort of regulations aren't going to just stay in one industry. How, as we and Immersive Labs and Core to Cloud, how are we looking to support going forward with this to make sure people, are able to exercise?
Well, we can offer Immersive Labs in a couple of different ways to suit the organization. We can also help as much or as little as people want. So we can provide them the product. We can offer them fully customized exercises to their own environment, or we can do tailored ones. And the tailored ones, again, is probably 40 or 50. You probably correct me how many, but custom ones already within the platform. And again, you're talking about the financial services side. There's tons in there that really fit well. They've got ransomware ones around TravelX. They've got a chatbot hack. They've got supply chain compromise, password compromise, remote working issues, a global server hack. These scenarios are based on real things that have happened. And again, they're already really well thought through. The other thing to point out about these scenarios as well is that, very different to a tabletop exercise, they are not linear. So again, based on the decisions that your group make, the scenario may go off in a slightly different direction, allowing you to sort of explore good and bad decisions and talk through them. So, I've done quite, as you mentioned, we run quite a lot of these now. And I've been through quite a few of these, as you mentioned, the pipeline ones. I've been through some healthcare ones. I've even been through one around, a well-known provider of automated cars that's, an insider threat taking some information out. And these apply across sector, really well thought out. And again, because they're not linear and it's almost a group exercise, it's quite collaborative as well. So, again, we can help deliver those. We can help customize them. Again, whatever people need.
I think also just, sometimes I think we find if companies are at the start of this journey around exercising, obviously you need to create exercises that are bespoke and specific to your organization. And that's what the FCA PRA financial service regulation will require. It's also really useful sometimes to take people out of their own day-to-day role in their own organization and say, right, pretend you are in a manufacturing organization, or you're running this infrastructure pipeline that's suffering a cyber attack. It's a safer way for them to really challenge their own understanding and process and procedures and bring that back to their organization. So you sometimes in exercises, people will get quite defensive, like, never happened to us. We've got this wonderful playbook. We'd never shut down social media because we've got all this wonderful and security type stuff. That would never happen here. But actually take yourself out of that. You're in a company that is suffering this, as they had in real life experience, and they can take that learning and apply it back to their own role.
I think it stops you from being defensive though, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like if someone came to me and was like, oh, Kelly, or you didn't have this on your marketing wasn't set up properly, you'd all of a sudden feel, oh, I'm being attacked and my department's being attacked and what I get wrong. Where I feel where we've run it, Phil, when it's been not their industry or a well-known story that they've seen in the news so they know it can happen. I mean, Uber happened, didn't it, recently? Like things do happen. We can't sit there and say it won't. I feel like it takes the barrier and it doesn't feel like it's personal. You're just going on the journey and trying to work it out. And without realising it, you're making decisions that you'd make for your own business, which I quite like about it.
Cyber resilience is more important than ever. The threats aren't going away. They're only increasing. Combination of new regulations, increasingly interconnected supply chains and dependencies. Now is the time to start building your capabilities in this space and educating your workforce so that they are ready to respond, right? And everyone's just lived through COVID. So we've all gone through a big disruption and all come out the other side. That's great. What can we learn from that and apply to how we need to be agile and adaptable to a cyber threat, which is going to be a lot faster. It's going to have a much bigger impact in terms of our business. And then how do we get the evidence that we're in a good place, but we've got a journey of improvement. This isn't like one and done and finished forever. Like
that's it. I feel
iteration.
From everything I've learned from this industry that cybersecurity is a journey.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no end goal to this.
Yeah.
This is just an evolution, and we're on the ride, and we're going with it, and new and things will come out. So I think, I think everyone just needs to get involved in how we can become more resilient to it.
If you can demonstrate that you've been working on this and you still suffer a cyber attack, and with the hindsight, it looks like you might have made the wrong decisions, at least you can demonstrate that you were trying to build the resilience and you were learning from that. And it's a constant journey. It's a constant evolution, constant learning process. But I would argue it's better to learn through a simulated platform than from real life. That's the time to learn is not through the actual crisis itself.